All right, guys, Dummy Don Lemon is back, okay? And I don't know why I'm saying that he's back because he hasn't really went anywhere. His show has still been airing every night. I guess I'm saying that because it seems like he left, as I haven't made a video about Don Lemon in a long time. And I used to make videos about him all the time on my channel, right? But for whatever reason, lately in the past few months, he just hasn't been on my radar. But maybe that's just because CNN has become so irrelevant, okay? And as you guys know, CNN, because they become so irrelevant, their ratings have tanked to the floor, right? They are the most irrelevant cable news channel that we have, right? Between the big three, between Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN is very irrelevant, okay? Nobody watches CNN anymore. And because of that, their new boss, Discovery, they cleaned house, right? They got rid of the CEO. Well, the official story is that he resigned. And what they decided is that they're going to go in a new direction in which they're actually going to be a real journalistic news network, which means that they're not just going to spend all their time attacking Trump and Republicans. They're going to hold Democrats and Republicans to the same standard, okay? They're gonna try to treat both parties equally, hold both parties accountable, okay? They're gonna get back to real journalism, allegedly, okay? However, Don Lemon does not like that, right? And in this interview on CNN, Rich, I find it to be fascinating how they interview each other on their own network as if they can't really find anybody else interesting to come on the network and interview. This guy talks on their network every single night, but anyways, that's besides the point. Don Lemon is going to openly rebel against his new bosses. He's literally going to openly say on the network that we should not treat Republicans equally. Okay, we should not hold Republicans and Democrats to the same standard because Republicans are so bad. Okay, and I found this conversation to be fascinating. How this guy is literally rebelling against his boss, who's trying to bring the network back to relevance, aka making some money, right? And this is a prime example of why you should not let woke revolutionaries run your company, okay? Because they will drive your company into the ground. They don't care about the bottom line. And in this particular case, it's not even like they're chasing the truth or trying to actually be a real news network. This guy is literally saying, no, I want to be a propaganda network. We have to be an arm of the Democrat Party. And if we can't, I'm going to whine and cry and complain about it. That's literally what's happening. So with that being said, before I get into this, I actually want to read really quickly here about how CNN's new boss, David Zaslav, is asking the network to return to journalism as ratings tank. I'm reading this so that you guys get a better idea of exactly the direction that Discovery CEO David Zaslav wants the network to go in. So let's read here. Warner Bros. Discovery CEO has pushed CNN to return to a focus on journalism as the network's ratings nosedive. Zaslav appears to be pushing for the network to deliver straight news for everyone, according to a report. Quote, journalism first. America needs a news network where everybody can come and be heard, Republicans, Democrats, Zaslav said. Quote, I think you're seeing more of that at CNN. We're not going to look at the ratings, and in the long run, it's going to be worth more. AKA, we're not going to look at the ratings right now because they're terrible, okay? But we think the ratings will get better in the future. That's what he's saying. The hiring of Chris Slett as head of CNN signals a pivoting point for the network, according to Zaslav. Lynch has overseen a CNN that doesn't use the, quote, breaking news banner for every report and has stopped flooding viewers with opinion-based programming, the report noted. Still, in the short run, the shift from sensational news has affected ratings. Quote, the problem is we are not a neutral country, according to a source cited as, quote, well placed in the report. The ratings are getting worse because they are taking out all the bells and whistles. CNN's ratings are as bad as local news ratings. Quote, new management is not freaking out, but everyone else at CNN is. They want to fix the shows first, but they don't realize the shows and ratings are connected. Okay, I read that so you guys can get a better understanding of the context behind what Don Lemon is saying and why he's saying it before I play this clip. And for you guys to understand that CNN internally, these guys are literally rebelling against new management because new management wants to treat Republicans equally, right? They want to give Republicans a fair shot and not just have CNN be a propaganda arm of the Democrat Party, and they can't stand it, right? They can't stand it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this.
Joining us now is the anchor of CNN's Don Lemon tonight and the author of This is the Fire, What I Say to My Friends About Racism, Don Lemon. That was fascinating, especially what Jason Van Tatenhove was nodding along with as we heard that professor speaking.
The entire interview. And I said to him on the set and to the audience that it was really surreal sitting there with someone who identified in some way with the Oath Keepers, whether he was a member or worked for them, a spokesperson, what have you, but sitting there with this guy who is, worked with a group who was part of the insurrection, who's been part of the tearing down of democracy, who has been demonizing people like me and you who work for the media, people of color, women, and, going into the Capitol and trying to steal a free and fair election. It was, one of the most surreal moments I think I've ever had on CNN when he walked into the studio. I said that. But speaking very soberly about the realities of America and American politics right now.
All right. So before we continue with this, I just want to say something. It's funny how I have no clue who these people are that the mainstream liberal media keeps playing up, right? All these groups, these extremist groups on the right. I don't know who the Oath Keepers are. I have no clue who they are. I don't know who's in that group. Just like I don't know, what's that group called? The Patriot Front, Fed Front. They get arrested, for having some January 6th rally or whatever, right? They got arrested doing a pride parade. I have no clue who these people are. But CNN, they try to play these people up as if they represent the mainstream Republican Party, right? They represent conservatives. And I'm just like, I don't think that most people even know who these groups are. They don't know who these people are. Okay, that's not to say they don't exist and they're not out there, but they try to make these like very fringe groups a representation of what the Republican Party and conservatives are. Okay, but on the other hand, they don't seem to be concerned about the extremist groups on the left, BLM, Antifa, who definitely are a lot closer to representing the mainstream Democrat Party and the values and the things that they stand for than the so-called extremist groups on the right.
We sit around and we talk about these things and we want to give this false equivalence to Democrats and Republicans. That is not where we are right now. Republicans are doing something that is very dangerous to our society.
And the Democrats aren't, right? The BLM riots, Antifa riots, that's not. Trying to intimidate Supreme Court justices, literally invading churches, chasing Supreme Court justices out of restaurants, trying to intimidate them at their houses, right? Oh, not dangerous to democracy. Only Republicans. And we can't have a false equivalency here, right? The Republicans are objectively worse. Again, even though Democrat/leftist extremist groups are responsible for the most political violence in this country that I've seen since I've been alive, period.
And we have to acknowledge that. We have to acknowledge that as Americans. We must acknowledge that as journalists, because if we don't, we're not doing our jobs.
No, you're not doing your job right now, which is why your ratings are terrible. You're not doing your job, and you're saying, look, we're just going to treat Democrats with kid gloves, right? All the extremism that goes on their side, we're going to ignore it, right? They can burn pregnancy centers, right? Pro-life centers, we'll let them burn to the ground and we'll ignore it and not say anything about it. But Republicans, though, right? A failed attempt to take over the Capitol. Oh, God, we're going to talk about that for 2 or 3, 4 years straight, right? They're going to be talking about that for a decade straight, okay? Again, people on the left can hold violent events that people lose their lives in these events, right? We're talking about, like, what? 10, 20, 30, 40 people lost their lives due to BLM protests on top of billions of dollars of damage. They don't talk about that. But they're going to talk about January 6th, something that cost, maybe a couple million in damage. You only had one person that was actually killed. Again, they're going to talk about that for the next decade. They're never going to stop talking about it. This is not about, Republicans are actually more dangerous to Democrats. It's not about that. It's about, we just want to be a propaganda arm of the Democrat Party. We don't care about extremism because we like our extremism, right? We like using extremism to achieve what we want, right? We think it's totally justified to use violence to get what we want. But if the other side does it, though, then, it's wrong, okay? And those people are just, worse than the Democrats who literally do the exact same thing, but I would argue that they're even worse, right? So he's right in the sense that they're not equivalent because the Democrats are worse, right?
We cannot sit here and pretend like, well, Republicans, cut them a break. We want to hear whatever. They have a lot to answer for.
That's a direct shot at his boss, right? Because that's essentially their interpretation of what the new management is saying, right? They think that new management is saying cut Republicans a break when that's not what they're saying. What they're saying is that you need to cover both sides equally. If CNN spent more time actually covering the extremism going on the left, their ratings would be a lot better. I guarantee it.
In this moment. A lot to answer for what happened with the former president of the United States, why they allowed his antics to go on for so long, why he is not accountable, why they go along with it and don't say anything. They've got to answer for that. Why they are, whether you agree with abortion rights or not, why they have taken back a right that was that was granted to American women for 50 years.
Okay, and why are the Democrats openly supporting and encouraging people to use violence over the fact that the Supreme Court made a decision that they didn't like? Do the Democrats got to answer for that? Right? Do they got to answer for that? Oh, of course not. Of course not, because Don Lemon agrees with the left, right? He disagrees with the Supreme Court. So Democrats don't have to answer for that because he agrees with that. You see how this works, guys? Again, it's not that the Republicans are objectively worse than the Democrats. That's not what it is. It's simply, I want to push my political views. I only want to hold one party accountable. I don't want to hold the other party accountable for the things that I claim that I care about.
They have to answer for those questions. If they come here on CNN, they must answer for that. If they go on MSNBC, they must answer for that. If they go on ABC, they must answer for that. And they cannot expect to be coddled when they go on to a news organization.
Well, y'all don't let Republicans on a news organization, especially Trump Republicans. The only Republicans they let on CNN are never Trumpers, right? Solely for the purpose of bashing Trump. They don't bring them on CNN to try to actually ask them real questions because they don't let Republicans on the network, right? They don't let opposing views on the network. They think that Trump Republicans are so beyond the pale, they don't deserve a platform on CNN. So I don't know what Don Lemon is talking about, right? I don't know what Don Lemon is talking about here.
Or if they step in front of a crowd of supporters, or of voters, or of Americans. So we've got to be, so we have a former member of the Oath Keepers who is saying we are in very dangerous territory. We have a history professor who is telling us right now that the GOP is becoming more and more associated with extremists and radical.
And the Democrat Party is not, right? Again, he's trying to say they're not the same, but I would make the argument that they are the same, and if they're not the same, the Democrats are worse.
And that's specifically what they were talking about that was interesting and notable. The suggestion that there's bleed over between the Oath Keepers, and they talked about, I think they brought up Idaho and the Pacific Northwest.
Merging. They're merging. And let's not pretend. I think people, even the former president, I think even people who are in charge of what the American press puts out, they want to believe that we are living in 1987, this sort of Reagan-esque Republican. That's not where we are right now.
Yeah, and we're not living in the 90s with the Bill Clinton Democrats, right? Or the Joe Biden Democrats, really, right? The Blue Dog Democrats, okay? We're not living in that time period either, Don.
And if we continue to allow that, we are going to go off of a cliff. And I'm not sure that we can return. People, the President Biden did an interview and said, I want to unite the American people. Okay, that's great. Is it Pollyannish? Probably. Would most people like that to happen? Yes. But that is not why. I think that's a misrepresentation of why Joe Biden was elected. Joe Biden wasn't elected. There aren't Democrats going, I want to be more, come more to the center and be more like a Republican.
I bet there's a whole lot of them that's saying that right now. There's a whole lot of them that are saying it right now, considering inflation, border crisis, crime crisis. The American people have thoroughly rejected progressive policies, okay? I'm pretty sure there's a whole lot of Americans that say, yeah, we need to be more towards the center. This guy is way too far left. Democrat Party is way too far left, especially on social issues, okay?
Republicans going, I want to be more like a Democrat. The reason that Joe Biden was elected is because people wanted sanity.
No, The reason why Joe Biden was elected is because you guys pushed this idea that Trump was the worst thing in the world and that all the problems of America, particularly the pandemic, was on Trump, right? When throughout Trump's presidency, at least up until the pandemic, the economy was amazing, right? We had an amazing country. We were in a great place domestically and internationally. But the media, regardless of us being in a great place, made Trump out to be the worst person ever. He's running this country into the ground. It's terrible, even though that is not the experience that the American people had. And people realize now that, oh, we've been tricked. That's why when you listen to a lot of Democrats talk about Joe Biden and voting for him, they say, I feel tricked. I feel like I was led astray because the mainstream liberal media told them that Trump was their problem, that Trump was so bad. Right, he was the problem with this country, and when they actually got somebody else in office and they see the country take a nosedive and they're feeling it in their pocket, they know that their dollar isn't worth anything anymore. They realize, oh, I've been led astray, right? They got me, right? They fooled me, okay? So there you have it. Don Lemon just openly rebelling against his new boss on CNN and basically saying exactly what I've been telling you guys about these news outlets. They want to be arms of the Democrat Party. He's literally telling you, I want to be a propaganda outlet. That's what I want to be. I am not a journalist. I'm a propaganda opinion host that is a cheerleader for the far left Democrat Party. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.